In the year 2000, Enron was the seventh largest company in America. Bigger than Disney, bigger than Boeing. Fortune magazine named it America's most innovative company for 6 years in a row. Then in 2001, it disappeared completely. And when investigators started digging, they found something that changed corporate America forever. They found executives who cashed out over $1 billion while telling employees to buy more stock. They found an accounting firm that shredded tons of documents while the SEC was already investigating. They found recordings of traders laughing about causing blackouts in California and stealing from grandmothers. 20,000 employees lost their jobs. They also lost their life savings because Enron had locked them out of selling their stock while executives sold theirs. The stock went from $90 to 40 cents. Their retirement accounts went to zero. The CEO was convicted, then died of a heart attack before sentencing. The other CEO got 24 years in prison. The CFO got 5 years. Their accounting firm, one of the 5 largest in the world, was destroyed. 85,000 accountants lost their jobs because of O&E client. This is the story of Enron. Enron started as something real. In 1985, Kenneth Lay merged 2 natural gas pipeline companies to create Enron. Pipelines. Infrastructure. Actual physical assets that moved actual gas across America. A real business, making real money, in Houston, Texas. Kenneth Lay was Houston royalty, son of a Baptist minister, PhD in economics, friend of presidents. George W. Bush called him Kenny Boy. He sat on charity boards. He funded the arts. He was the respectable face of Texas capitalism. But Ken Lay had bigger ambitions than pipelines. In 1990, he hired a young McKinsey consultant named Jeffrey Skilling. Skilling had an idea that would transform Enron from a boring gas company into the most exciting company on Wall Street, and eventually into the biggest fraud in American history. Skilling's big idea was simple. Instead of just moving gas through pipes, Enron would trade gas. They would be the middleman, create a market, buy low, sell high. They would become the stock exchange for energy. And it worked brilliantly. But Skilling also brought something else, an accounting trick called mark-to-market. Instead of booking profits when you make them, you book them when you sign the deal. Sign a 20-year contract today. Book all 20 years of profit today, even if you haven't earned a single dollar yet. Jeff Skilling was a different kind of executive. Harvard MBA, McKinsey consultant. He genuinely believed he was smarter than everyone else. They called themselves the smartest guys in the room. And when you think you're the smartest, rules start to feel like suggestions. Skilling created a brutal internal culture. Every year, the bottom 15% of employees were fired, no matter how well the company did. It was called rank and yank. Only the most aggressive, the most ruthless, survived. By 2000, Enron was everywhere. Energy trading, broadband, water, weather derivatives. They would trade anything. Revenue went from $4 billion in 1996 to $100 billion in 2000. The stock hit $90. Ken Lay and Jeff Skilling were treated like visionaries. Fortune magazine named Enron America's most innovative company 6 years in a row. Wall Street analysts competed to praise them. The stock price rose and rose. Nobody asked how they were making so much money. Nobody wanted to know. Here's what was actually happening. Enron was losing money. Lots of it. Their broadband business was a disaster. Their energy plants were failing. But mark-to-market accounting meant they had already booked future profits that weren't coming. They needed a way to hide the losses. Enter Andrew Fastow, the CFO, the money genius. Fastow created hundreds of shell companies with names like LJM and Chuco and Jedi. These fake companies would buy Enron's bad assets, making the losses disappear from Enron's books. Where did the shell companies get money? From Enron. It gets worse. Fastow was secretly running some of these shell companies himself. He was paying himself fees from both sides. He made $45 million from entities he created to hide Enron's losses. The CFO was stealing from the company he was supposed to protect. Did Ken Lay and Jeff Skilling know? Prosecutors would later prove they did. They approved Fastow's side deals. They signed off on the fake companies. They watched the fraud happen and let it continue because it made the numbers work. But Enron wasn't just hiding losses. They were actively creating disasters for profit. In 2000 and 2001, California experienced an electricity crisis, rolling blackouts, prices skyrocketing, hospitals going dark, traffic lights failing. The state nearly went bankrupt, and Enron was behind it. Enron traders had developed strategies with names like Death Star, Get Shorty, Fat Boy, and Ricochet. These weren't video games. They were schemes to manipulate California's electricity market, create fake shortages, cause blackouts, then charge premium prices to fix the crisis they created. And we know exactly what they were thinking because they recorded themselves. The tapes are public. You can hear Enron traders joking about stealing from Grandma Millie, laughing about California burning, cheering when power plants went offline. Quote, "Burn, baby, burn." One tape captures a trader calling a power plant and asking them to shut down during a blackout. Quote, "We want you guys to get a little creative and come up with a reason to go down. The plant went offline. 1 million Californians lost power." The trader made his bonus. While this was happening, Ken Lay was meeting with Vice President Dick Cheney about energy policy. Enron was lobbying against price caps, the regulations that would have stopped them from gouging California. The Fox was advising on henhouse security. March 2001. A journalist named Bethany M.C. Lean at Fortune magazine asked a simple question. How exactly does Enron make its money? Nobody could answer. The company's financial reports were incomprehensible. Analysts who had praised Enron for years suddenly realized they had no idea what it actually did. When an analyst pressed Skilling on a conference call about why Enron wouldn't release a balance sheet, Skilling snapped. He called the analyst an asshole. On a recorded call with investors listening, the smartest guy in the room was losing his composure. The 14th of August 2001, Jeff Skilling suddenly resigned as CEO after only 6 months in the job. He said it was for personal reasons. He immediately started selling his stock. Almost $60 million worth. He knew what was coming. The day after Skilling resigned, an Enron vice president named Sharon Watkins sent Ken Lay a 6-page letter. She warned him that the company was about to implode in a wave of accounting scandals. She had seen the fake companies. She knew the numbers were lies. She was trying to save Enron from itself. Ken Lay's response. He had Enron's lawyers investigate Sharon Watkins instead of investigating the fraud. The law firm recommended that Enron consider whether she should be fired. The messenger was the problem, not the message. The 16th of October 2001, Enron announced a $618 million loss. They also disclosed that they had overstated earnings by nearly $600 million over 4 years, and they announced a $1.2 billion reduction in shareholder value. The house of cards was falling. The next day, the SEC opened an investigation, and something else started happening at Arthur Andersen, Enron's accounting firm. Partners called an urgent meeting. The topic: Document Retention Policy. Translation: Start shredding. While all this was happening, Ken Lay went on an employee conference call. He told workers that Enron was in the strongest and best shape it has ever been. He encouraged them to buy more stock. Quote, "My personal belief is that the stock is an incredible bargain." What Ken Lay didn't mention, during this same period, he was selling his own stock back to the company, $70 million worth. Executives were cashing out while telling employees to hold. The betrayal was calculated and complete. Then Enron locked employees out of their 401(k) accounts. During a blackout period for administrative changes, employees couldn't sell their stock. They watched the price fall from $30 to $20 to $10 to $5. They couldn't do anything. Executives had no such restrictions. The 8th of November 2001, the SEC subpoenaed Arthur Andersen for all Enron documents. Here's the problem. Andersen had been shredding documents for 3 weeks. Tons of paper, thousands of emails deleted, industrial shredders running around the clock. One email that survived shows an Andersen lawyer reminding everyone to follow the document retention policy. The shredding continued for 1 more day after the subpoena, until someone finally sent an email saying stop the shredding. By then, it was too late, and not just for Enron. The 2nd of December 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy. At the time, it was the largest bankruptcy in American history. A $68 billion company, gone. 20,000 employees. Fired, and the accounting firm that helped make it possible was about to face justice. Arthur Andersen wasn't some small accounting shop. They were one of the Big Five, the five most prestigious accounting firms in the world. They employed 85,000 people globally. They had audited Enron for 16 years. They were supposed to catch fraud. Instead, they helped hide it. March 2002. The Department of Justice indicted Arthur Andersen for obstruction of justice. Not for bad auditing, for shredding evidence. The accounting firm that was supposed to verify truth had destroyed it instead. June 2002. Arthur Andersen was found guilty, and because a convicted felon can't audit public companies, the firm was finished. 85,000 accountants lost their jobs because of one client. The Big Five became the Big Four overnight. Years later, the Supreme Court overturned the conviction on a technicality. But it didn't matter. By then, Arthur Andersen was already dead. The clients were gone. The employees had scattered. You can win the legal battle and still lose everything. Now for the executives. The Enron Task Force, a team of FBI agents and federal prosecutors, spent years building cases. 22 people would eventually be convicted, but everyone wanted the big fish. Ken Lay and Jeff Skilling. Andy Fasto, the CFO who created the fake companies, cut a deal. He pleaded guilty and agreed to testify against his former bosses. 10-year sentence, later reduced to 6. In exchange, he told prosecutors everything. January 2006, Ken Lay and Jeff Skilling went on trial together in Houston. 56 days of testimony. Prosecutors called it a massive conspiracy to deceive investors. The defense said they were just aggressive businessmen who got unlucky. The 25th of May 2006, after 6 days of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Jeff Skilling, guilty on 19 counts including conspiracy, securities fraud, and insider trading. Ken Lay, guilty on all 6 counts he was charged with. The smartest guys in the room had been caught. Ken Lay never went to prison. 6 weeks after his conviction, he died of a heart attack while vacationing in Colorado. He was 64 years old. Because he died before he could appeal, his conviction was legally vacated. In the eyes of the law, Kenneth Lay died an innocent man. Jeff Skilling wasn't so lucky. October 2006. 24 years in federal prison. At the time, it was one of the longest sentences ever for white-collar crime. He would serve 12 years before being released in 2019. The smartest guy in the room, in a cell. The victims never fully recovered. Employees who had their entire retirement in Enron stock lost everything. One worker testified he went from $1.3 million in retirement savings to $8,000, 99% gone. People in their 60s had to go back to work. Meanwhile, executives had cashed out over $1 billion while the company was collapsing. Ken Lay alone sold more than $300 million in stock. Jeff Skilling took out $60 million. The people who knew it was failing got rich. The people who trusted them got ruined. Congress responded with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. New rules for corporate accounting. New oversight boards. Whistleblower protections. Criminal penalties for executives who lie about finances. Enron changed how American corporations are regulated forever. But did it work? 6 years later came the 2008 financial crisis. Banks that were too big to fail, executives who walked away rich while taxpayers paid the bill. Some lessons, it seems, have to be learned over and over again. So what are the lessons of Enron? First, complexity is often a disguise. When a company can't explain how it makes money, maybe it doesn't. The smartest guys in the room used complexity to hide fraud. Second, gatekeepers can fail. Accountants, analysts, regulators, they all exist to catch fraud. At Enron, they all failed. Some were fooled. Some were complicit. Some just didn't want to kill the golden goose. Third, culture matters. Enron created an environment where winning was everything, ethics were optional, and questioning the numbers was career suicide. That culture didn't just enable fraud, it demanded it. And fourth, there's a difference between aggressive and illegal. Skilling's defense was that he was just being competitive. But there's a line. Causing blackouts for profit crosses it. Lying to employees crosses it. Shredding evidence crosses it. Ambition without ethics is just crime. The smartest guys in the room. That's what they called themselves. They thought they were smarter than investors, smarter than regulators, smarter than the market itself. But in the end, the only thing they proved was that smart isn't the same as good. $68 billion. Gone. 20,000 jobs. Gone. A 100-year-old accounting firm. Gone. Countless retirement accounts. Gone. And somewhere out there right now, another company is probably booking profits it hasn't earned, hiding debts it can't pay, and calling themselves the smartest guys in their room. The downfall. From WeWork to Theranos to FTX to Nikola to Enron. Different industries. Different decades. Same story. Ambition becomes arrogance. Arrogance becomes fraud. And fraud always falls. This has been the downfall, where every empire falls. And we show you exactly how it happens. Subscribe to see the next collapse, because there's always a next one. The downfall. Subscribe now.